Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Community Relations at Jovia Financial Credit Union, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO, keeper of the brand marketing and digital agency, and we're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship.
We bring you business advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview the top business leaders in the industry.
Wow.
Now, Ray, there's a lot of people are getting married, proposals over the holiday, but they say when an attorney gets married, they don't say I do. They say I accept the terms and conditions.
Wow.
The legalities of it all.
Very romantic.
It's only $40 to get a marriage certificate. Do you know that?
No, I did not know
I
that.
only went half on mine with my husband. So 50-50, we split.
Yeah.
$20, baby.
Wow.
$20.
$20. You can't even get dinner for that.
You can't get divorced for that.
No. Yeah. Way more expensive. Well, hopefully we don't have to worry about that.
Exactly.
We're like the radio couple.
We are.
And I hope we never go through that.
Exactly.
So.
Otherwise, I want more than half.
Yeah. We didn't have to even pay $40 for that. That's pretty good. All right, helping provide us with business empowerment today is our guest, Sharon T. Hoskins. Now, Sharon is of Hoskins LLP. It's managed by her and her husband, the team of Sharon and Rob Hoskins. Combined, they bring over 40 years of legal experience to the table. Marital agreements, child support and custody, equitable distribution, divorce mediation, and more. So we're glad to have you on the show today. Thank you for being on, Sharon.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
Yes, long overdue, and I think very timely because this is, family legal issues, trust, estates, marital challenges is like always bubbling in the air.
Yeah, well, it's good to have someone that's a resource because we have all these tough things going around. You don't want to turn to the wrong person for advice, and the situation of marital, child support, all that. Those are big decisions. These aren't, it's not like a small thing. So tell us, how'd you get into this?
Well, I actually started out teaching, but I had always wanted to go to law school. And my mother said, when are you going to go to law school? I didn't pay for that fancy degree for you not to put it to good use. So get over there and get it done. So I said, yes, Mom. And I went ahead and went to law school and decided that I really wanted to focus on personal issues as opposed to dealing with businesses and so forth, because I wanted to help people. And it sounds a little sort of, Pollyannish, but that's how I got into it. I wanted to help people get them through those difficult times on personal issues. And I also thought, well, with family law and particularly divorce, it might be a little interesting in the stories that you would hear, kind of like a soap opera at times.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, it'd be nice to kind of get those little salacious details that were going on.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Now, is it more, is it like that or is it?
Yes.
It is.
Is it?
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes too much. So,
oh, wow.
I've had my fill of soap operas, and I certainly don't watch those. I don't even think they come on anymore.
I don't know. Well, I'm not.
They're more
around.
well, General Hospital is still around. That's seems like it's never going away.
But they're definitely it's real life, and real life is they always say is stranger than fiction, and there are a lot of people who go through some situations that you just would never believe. By the same token, a lot of people go through the same thing. So there are the same trends that go through a lot of things, where there's that feeling of some distrust and dishonesty, lack of communication going on, financial problems, a lot of those are the same. But every now and then you get those stories where you're like, what? They did what?
Wow. So even after 40 years of experience, you still get surprised.
They're still like hiding money, kids on the side, families on the side.
Families on the side.
Woo, Ray.
No, we're all good. I've done none of that. Now, what are some of the more interesting stories, maybe? And I know you probably can't say names, and you don't want to protect the innocent, but or protect the guilty.
Or the guilty.
We don't deal in innocence and guilt here.
Okay.
Family law. Some interesting stories. Oh goodness, it's hard to pinpoint. What I like most is really just, I have an opportunity to learn about other industries and businesses, because when you have a couple and they have to divide their property, they may be a owner of a business, and I have to learn about that business. So if somebody's in radio, for instance, I have to learn about that industry. I have to learn about someone is owner of retail stores or strip malls. I get to learn about those industries because I have to understand what's involved so that we can distribute it. So those aren't the more juicy details that you're looking for.
No, that is interesting. Yeah,
because you have to value the business,
right? I have to know a little tax law. I have to know a little bit about bankruptcy. I have to know again different industries and how they work, so that I don't personally value the business. I hire an expert for that, but I still need to have a deep enough understanding that I can ask the right questions and make sure we're doing a proper distribution that's fair certainly to my client.
Of course.
Now, what type of so you mentioned that you do have to know a little bit. You need to know enough to be dangerous, but you need to know where to go.
Exactly.
So what kind of partners do you typically engage?
Typically, you'll have an accountant of some sort, and it may be the party's accountant, your client's accountant. But sometimes, if you have to go to an expert to value a particular business, then there are different companies out there that have experience dealing with divorce cases and valuing businesses incident to a divorce, because there's particular things that they really need to look for and understand that you're trying to get out of that valuation. So you want someone who's familiar with what a judge may be looking for and what they're going to be asking when they look at a report that's generated. So also real estate appraisals happen a lot, because usually there's a marital residence and it has to be valued or sold. So you have brokers as well. Those are the three. And then you have the mental health professionals that play a large part, particularly when there are children. Sometimes a court will appoint a forensic to do an evaluation of the parties and to help the judge determine who's the more fit parent if they are fighting over custody. Yeah. But aside from that, if you just need someone to help the parties through the process, sometimes it's not necessarily helping someone decide who the more fit parent is, but it's just helping them navigate the divorce process. It's very emotional, and it can take a serious toll on you mentally.
I'm sure. So what do you think differentiates you from other, family law attorneys out there, or why do people come to the Hoskins?
Okay. So I have to toot my own horn a bit, I guess. Here, I would say because I'm knowledgeable, I'm smart, I pay attention to the details, and I think a lot of that is missing sometimes because, in fairness to my other colleagues, when you have such large caseloads, sometimes it's difficult to really hone in on some of those details and know what's going on in every case. But I do pride myself on paying attention to the detail. Also, just being creative in some of the solutions. I'm not a cookie cutter kind of person like, oh, this is the way it's done and that's how you have to do it. I try to look at what works for that particular family. You don't have to have an access schedule that's every other weekend and Tuesday night dinner.
Right.
You can there's so many options that you can choose from that you can do. And also, I'm practical and I'm tough. I don't get scared off easily by my opposing counsel, because I'm going to go in and do the best job I can for my client.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, and our guest today is Sharon T. Hoskins of Hoskins LLP. So now I have to ask you this, because this is certainly a differentiator for you, is that you're a husband and wife team as well.
Yes.
So
actually, it's not that uncommon.
No, okay.
Really? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's really, I know a number of our colleagues that are husband and wife teams in matrimonial law.
Matrimonial.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking might be difficult because, I know for me, I'm avoiding that Netflix movie Marriage Story because I'm sure that's driven some business your way. And I'm afraid to watch that with my wife because she's going to point out these are the things you're doing wrong, or something like that. But anyway.
You should listen to her if she does.
Yes, and I will. I find that's the number one rule. But I'm just curious. So I mean, if you're dealing with these crazy stories sometimes, does that ever spill into your life? I mean, that's got to be tough.
Yes. I mean, we do talk about some cases that may, be outside of the office, but just trying to work through how we might handle something. But it impacts it in a more positive way, I would say, because we don't want to go there, right? So, and we also know, if I had to go through this, and I may get this attorney or that attorney, and then you do the trick where you conflict them out by going consulting with all the good ones, so that your spouse can't get them against you. But so we know the tricks that each one of us might use, so we have to tread lightly and make sure we don't get there.
Gotcha.
Peace of the family.
Peace in the family. Yep.
Yes, indeed.
That makes sense to me. Now, what are some of the biggest challenges for you in your business?
From a business perspective, the biggest challenge, not getting paid.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I think that's something that a lot of business people face at some point. And that's challenging. If I'm not being paid for my services and I can't, pay my overhead, I can't stay in business. Right. And so, and when you're dealing with these types of cases where they're personal cases, so these are personal bank accounts. This is not a business that can, write things off or find other ways to cover those expenses. So there are times when there's just not enough money to go around, but the animosity is so thick and so strong that they keep fighting and fighting. And the more you fight, and by fighting, I mean motion practice. You're in court, you're filing motions, you're dragging it out. You're not reaching a settlement, so you're going to end up going to trial. Trial is extremely expensive. And, I do have a heart. I don't like to drop clients in the middle. And in many cases, the court won't allow you to come out of a case if it's so far along.
Right.
So, so that becomes a challenge, when I'm not getting paid, but I still, I want to deliver a good product, and because I have pride in what I do. But
I can see
hurts the pocket.
And I can see that being a challenge, because it's, when you speak to a lot of businesses, all right, sometimes it's 30 days to get paid, which is great. Sometimes it's 90, 120 day.
But this is kind of open-ended.
Yeah, it's got to vary wildly.
I have a case pending now that I've been on for, I think it's 5 years, going on 6 years. And, and this happens often where you're waiting for the house to be sold or something like that. And it's not selling. And, it's not necessarily through the fault of the parties, but it's just not selling because of the market. And that's where your funds are coming from. So you're waiting and waiting and waiting.
That's deep. Because it's hard to kind of even, look at your overall plan on a monthly basis,
how do you plan your budget when that's going on?
When it's contingent on someone else's sell.
Ebb and flow, you just you hope for the flow more often.
Absolutely. Now, we're sitting here joking and highbrowing about divorce, but there's a lot of people who, kind of get in front of it, counseling and, prenups. Do people come to you for that as well?
Oh, I do prenups, absolutely. And prenups are much more common now than they were in the past. It's not the typical situation, that you would see in movies where it's, the high-powered older exec who marries the secretary and, they want to make sure that she's not, robbing him for all his money and trying to get half. There are so many reasons why a couple might want a prenup that are far different from that scenario. And especially now because people tend to, those who are getting married later in life. Right. And so you may have someone, a young professional, or maybe not so young anymore, professional, who has built up a business and they want to make sure they're protecting what they've built up thus far in the event of divorce. With a divorce rate of 50%, you have to think of these things. You also may have children from a prior relationship that you want to be able to take care of. And, regardless of what the relationship is between those children and the new or incoming spouse, you want to be able to know that you're going to have funds available to take care of your children if the marriage doesn't work out, without giving half of everything to that person.
Gotcha.
Stay where you are, Ray.
Yeah. I'm good. I know I got it good. That's the thing. I married up, so I'm all right. And we don't have a prenup, but it's I imagine that's a much more positive spin on things, because you're really just you're planning it ahead and you're saying, you know what, now you don't need to worry about that.
Right, and you're doing it at a time where you actually like each other at the moment.
Right.
Hopefully. So hopefully, well, at that point you're getting married, so I think you like each other.
You either like each other or
maybe
you're
there's some other alternative motive, but you may be a little bit more fair. And in negotiating it, you really get to see what your partner is thinking and where their mindset is. So it might make you rethink whether you actually go through with that wedding. Okay. But I always tell people, don't get offended by being asked to sign a prenup. Look at it as an opportunity.
Right.
Because that's where you can fashion, okay, well, this is what I want to happen, and work it out.
That's really smart advice. Yeah. I like that.
That's free for you.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to share it with my 3 daughters, so because they need to know that kind of thing. Now, I mean, when we're talking about the positive side of things, obviously there's there are a lot of negatives when it comes to the divorce and child custody, and that's really rough subjects, and that's life subjects beyond business and some of the other stressful things that come along. So, what do you deal with all that stress? Now, what do you do with that? Like, how do you deal with that?
Me personally, how do I sort of get through the day with that? Sometimes I personally I shut off my phone, to the business calls.
Right.
Because I can't have that overflowing into my own personal life, or else I will be in the same boat.
Right.
And so I have to do that for my own sanity. I also run. I'm an avid runner. I run, miles and miles at a time. It doesn't solve all the world's problems, or even my own, but it lets me escape for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody needs that. I mean, for me, it's movies. DB, it's movies and radio and TV.
Life. Turning off the phone.
Turning off
clients.
The phone. Well, there's working, there's living.
Right. And there's drinking.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then
there's a little wine. Glass of wine here and there.
Glass of wine isn't going to hurt anything. So, yeah, I mean, that's part of the way. Now, what do you tell your clients that are going through the stress and you see it? I mean, I imagine in many cases you can't hide that.
It is, and, I certainly feel for those clients, particularly when there are children involved and there's just that difficulty in communicating with the other parent. Because that just adds to the level of stress so much. Because you're worried about your child, and you're worried about, if you're in a custody battle, you're worried about, am I going to lose custody of my child, and what's going to happen if that does take place? So that's the heavy stuff, and that's very hard to deal with. The other sort of stuff that's not quite so heavy, but still a blow to anyone, is just the breakdown. It's really the death of a relationship, right? So you're grieving at the same time that you're fighting. And it's hard to deal with all of that. And so one of the things I do try to tell clients is you do have to find an outlet, particularly when you have young children, and it's usually the mom who doesn't want to let go. He can't take care of the child. He can't do this. And I said, you got to let him, because he's either going to rise to the occasion or he's going to fall flat, and then what's going to happen? They're going to be back with you anyway.
Right.
So you got to give them the chance to learn, because it's going to be better for the child, and that's built-in babysitting for you. So you get to have a night to yourself and go out with your girlfriends.
We see it with a lot of the moms and dads who are in that scenario, that we're friendly with. It's, you see it and it's unfortunate, but then you do see that, okay, well, yeah, they kind of worked it out. You see who rises and who falls.
Right. And just let them know there is a light at the end of that tunnel. It's a long tunnel.
Right.
But, the sooner you can come to grips with that it is the death of a relationship and you have to put it to rest. Mm-hmm. As soon as you can do that, close that chapter and start a new chapter, you're going to be better off. Or you may start a new book, close the book altogether,
right.
And just start a new life, fresh, that's focusing more on what your needs are, because now you don't have to worry about focusing on a partner's needs.
Right.
And, you really have to kind of focus on yourself and get to that new level to open up room for new relationships and a new you.
Yeah. Right. Now, do you also see the opposite side where people, they wait till the kids get 18 or graduate high school, and then, then they say, okay, we're calling it quits.
Oh, I know a number of people who are staying in it just until the kids go to college.
Right. I hear that a lot.
A lot of it is finances. You
Not
just
for
can't
my
afford
wife.
it. You just can't afford it, because then it's like, what do we do with the house? Where are the kids going to live if we split up? Because now you have to sell the house, and these the combined salary is what enabled you to have that lifestyle. When you split it up and you have to double everything as far as your expenses, a lot of times it can't be done.
Right. And then it's bye house.
It is. But when and I understand that situation, and a lot of people do it, but you do have to weigh you have to balance the effect it has on the children,
right,
living in that tense environment, and whether it really is benefiting them or not. So it depends on the level of tension and animosity between the two.
Yeah, I think when it's high, it's just better off to...
It's better off to, cut your ties and
do what's right for you, for the wife and the kids.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Sharon T. Hoskins of Hoskins LLP. My name is Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
All right, now listen, I don't want this to happen, but let's say that for some reason, Donyshia wakes up one morning
losing my mind
and goes, you know what, Ray, I've had it with him. I'm having a radio divorce.
Oh, no.
And she leaves me. And we come to you. Now, what's the typical day-to-day on something like that? Do we come to you as a couple? Is it that one person comes to you? How does that work? And can you kind of go through what the general steps are? And I'm sure every case is different. But.
Right. Well, generally, it's one party going to an attorney to find out what their rights are and what they can do from there. But it can be both if you employ mediation. Right. So that's another opportunity or option that is available. And mediation tends to be a little less costly because you're seeing an attorney. And I want to clarify, mediators are not necessarily attorneys. Okay. They can be a social worker. They can be just a mediator that's had some kind of training, or attorneys. I tend to, I'm biased, right, because I am an attorney.
Sure.
So I think an attorney mediator is better, depending on your purposes, because they're going to know the law and what you really, they're going to be able to tell you, this is what you would get if you had to go to court, and this is what you can design for yourselves. So that's the beauty of mediation, is that the parties control that process, and you can really fashion something that works for you. But the attorney is not representing either of you. The attorney mediator is serving as a facilitator to help you come to a resolution and an agreement. So that's the thing to be clear on, that you're not being represented. And when I'm wearing the mediator hat, I will let both parties know, well, these are some things that you should talk about. You should talk about and consider, because this is what you would get in court. And by the same token, this is what the other person would get. So there are pros and cons on both sides, because you're hearing, both parties are hearing both sides, right? So you're not getting an advantage over one or the other. And it's a level playing field for mediation. And it's less costly because you're dealing with one attorney or one mediator. When you do reach an agreement there and it's written up, I strongly advise each party to go to what I call a reviewing attorney. So you'll just get someone who'll say, can you just review this agreement, make sure it says what I think it says, and that, the result of it is what I think is going to happen. And if there's anything that I should be looking at as the party that is maybe grossly unfair to me, then I should ask for something else. And so that way you have that opportunity to have someone who's looking out specifically for your interests alone. And then you can come back and you might have to renegotiate a few different terms and then finally reach an agreement. So that process generally is less expensive than both parties getting separate lawyers, paying the retainer fees for each lawyer, and then some lawyers are able to work together, and so it's almost like a represented mediation. Some parties are just so far apart they have to go to litigation. Right. And when you're going down that trial path, again, trial is very expensive. And if you're not fighting over real issues, then it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and in the networking circles, when you meet mediators and they're or attorneys and they're talking about mediation, it does sound like that's the place, where if counseling didn't work out, that's the next step. So, I mean, from there, if you mediate a couple, let's say, are you then excluded? Like, let's say mediation doesn't work out. Are you able to represent one of those two parties?
No.
Okay.
If I'm a mediator, then and it doesn't work out, then I'm out of it, and they have to get someone else.
All right, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Now, we talked about a little bit of, sensationalism and TV, but is there any time where you have to hire a private investigator? They come to the table and they have photos and
DB wants the juice here.
It used to be that way. That's changed. So there were those times where you were trying to prove a ground for divorce. So oftentimes it was adultery, or No, really adultery. That's when you got the private investigator involved, and with the standing in the bushes with the camera and so forth. But now New York has no fault divorce, which they didn't have until it was 2010 or 2012 when we got we call it the irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. And for 6 months or more. So that's the closest thing we have to no fault. And if a party alleges that, there really is no defense from the other one, but the court will not sign off on a divorce judgment until all the issues are resolved regarding the children, spousal support, and property distribution. But that is where we are now. Most divorces now go through the irretrievable breakdown method. Before that, it was the constructive abandonment of a spouse, which meant basically no sex for at least a year or more.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
So if you are coming to court and you're pregnant, you really can't use that. Unless it was someone else.
Things that make you go...
Unless there was adultery.
Yes. Right. Oh, that's true, yeah.
But we're the other... So that was one type of private investigator, was trying to prove adultery. But now you do have financial investigators who will go to help you try to uncover where someone might be hiding money.
Okay. Gotcha.
That seems to be the big ticket.
Hiding
money, Ray.
The Swiss bank account. I don't have any
Cayman Islands.
No, none of that. Now, as we're kind of coming to a close, I would love to hear from you. Like, what is the one thing that you want the person who's listening to hear about you, about your services? What do you think is some of the most important things that you could bring to the table?
I think I want to say to people, if you think that you may be headed towards the road to divorce, definitely see an attorney. Even if you're not ready to actually pull that trigger at the moment, just go so you can understand the process and understand what your rights are and get a sort of a snapshot as to what your financial picture might look like in terms of divorce. So you understand how your assets are going to be divided, whether or not you would be paying spousal support or they might be paying spousal support, and for how long. There are statutory formulas now for child support and spousal support. And the court is going to adhere to those formulas unless you agree otherwise. So you want to also get a picture of what your leverage is in being able to negotiate a settlement with your spouse. So the earlier you kind of get that information, the better you can operate. And it also gives you the time to start gathering your information so that you have it available to you.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think so. You're definitely a wealth of knowledge. Now, where can people find you on your website?
My website is www.hoskinsllp.com. And that's Hoskins spelled H-O-S as in sugar, K-I-N-S. LLP, as in Paul.com. And my office number is 516-522-2616. I do serve all of Long Island and New York City. I won't say 5 boroughs because I actually don't go to Staten Island. Sorry, Staten Island. But the other 4 boroughs.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Well, again, I hope never to need your services, but it's good to know that, as DB said, there's someone there who cares and who is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you very much for being on the show today, Sharon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'd like to leave you with DB's philosophy. You can start the next chapter in your life by rereading the last one.
We want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-hosts and producers. This is an NCC Foundation Business Leaders Council production. Visit ncc.edu/WHPC for more information. Available on iHeartRadio as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcast, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll talk with you next week.